Rajesh Kumar had spent 32 years building walls around his life. Not metaphorical walls, actual barriers that kept people at arm's length. He lived alone in a small apartment in Mumbai, worked as an accountant in a modest firm, and spent his evenings reading books that transported him to worlds where people didn't disappoint you. His colleagues thought he was odd. His mother worried he would die unmarried. His father had stopped asking about his personal life years ago, but Rajesh didn't care about these opinions. He had learned long ago that people were unpredictable, dangerous, and ultimately, selfish. His life had a rhythm to it. Wake up at 6, exercise for an hour, breakfast at 7:30, arrive at work by 9, lunch alone at his desk, work until 6, return home, prepare a simple dinner, read for 2 hours, sleep by 11. On weekends, he would visit the local library or take long walks through the city streets. This wasn't a life full of excitement, but it was safe. It was predictable. It was his. Then, one monsoon evening in July, everything changed. Rajesh was walking back from his office, his umbrella blocking the heavy rain that fell in thick sheets across Mumbai's busy streets. The sidewalk was crowded with people rushing to catch buses and autos. He wasn't paying attention to his surroundings. His mind was on a particularly complex audit he was working on when he felt someone bump hard into him. Before he could react, his umbrella flew from his hands and landed several feet away on the wet pavement. He turned to see a young man, probably in his late 20s, apologizing profusely. The stranger was soaking wet, shivering, and looked absolutely miserable. His clothes were torn at the shoulder, and there was a thin line of blood running down his arm. Despite his usual policy of avoiding people, something in the stranger's expression made Rajesh hesitate. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't see you. I was running and—" the young man said, his teeth chattering. Rajesh picked up his umbrella and studied the stranger for a moment. Against his better judgment, he made a decision that would echo through the rest of his life. "What happened to your arm?" he asked. The young man looked down at his wand as if seeing it for the first time. "It's nothing serious. I had a disagreement with some people. They were helping me find work, but when I couldn't pay them what they wanted, they got angry. I managed to escape, but not before they got me." He laughed nervously. "Isn't that typical? You try to improve your life, and the world punishes you for it." Something about this statement resonated with Rajesh. The cynicism. The sense of betrayal by life itself. He saw himself in this stranger, and that scared him a little. "Where are you from?" Rajesh asked. "A small village in Uttar Pradesh. I came to Mumbai 6 months ago thinking I would build something great for myself. Instead, I've built a life of lies and false promises." The young man's voice cracked slightly. "I don't even have a place to sleep tonight. The money I earned, I lost to those people." Rajesh's protective wall was already showing cracks. He knew he should walk away. He knew this was exactly the kind of situation that would end in regret. Yet something deep inside him, something he thought he had buried years ago, was stirring. It was the part of him that still believed in human goodness, the part that wanted to help, to make a difference in someone's life. "Come with me," Rajesh heard himself say. "You need to get that wound cleaned. And you need dry clothes. I'm not far from here." The young man's face transformed. Relief washed over his features like a tide.
"Really? You would do that for me?"
"Why? You don't know me at all." "No, I don't," Rajesh admitted. "But everyone deserves help sometimes." The stranger extended his hand. "My name is Vikram Sharma. And I promise you, sir, I will never forget this kindness. Someday, when I make it big, when I become successful, I will repay you 100 times over. Just let me in, and I'll reward you. That's my promise to you." Rajesh shook his hand and somehow felt that this wasn't just another chance meeting with a stranger. This was something more significant, something that felt written in the stars, though he didn't believe in such things. The apartment was quiet when they arrived. Rajesh showed Vikram to the bathroom and gave him clean clothes, some old ones that he no longer wore. He cleaned and bandaged Vikram's wound with the first aid kit he kept in his kitchen. While Vikram showered, Rajesh prepared a simple meal of dal and rice. He even made chai, something he rarely did for himself. When Vikram emerged from the bathroom, he looked transformed, clean, dry, and almost hopeful. He sat down at the small dining table and ate with a gratitude that made Rajesh feel like he had just given him a palace instead of a simple meal and clean clothes. "Tell me about your life," Rajesh said, sitting across from him. "What brought you to the city? Vikram's story unfolded over the next few hours. He spoke of his village, his poor family, his dreams of becoming something more. He talked about how he had come to Mumbai with big ambitions, but found only exploitation and lies. People promised him jobs that didn't exist. Employers asked for money up front for positions they never filled. The more he talked, the more Rajesh saw the sadness in his eyes. Sadness that mirrored his own. "You know what the worst part is?" Vikram said, staring into his cup of chai. "It's the loneliness. In the village, I had my family, my community. Here, I have nobody. Nobody cares if you live or die. Nobody sees you. You're just another face in the crowd." "I understand that feeling," Rajesh said quietly. "I've lived in this city for 10 years, and I feel like I'm invisible too." Vikram looked at him with an intensity that made Rajesh uncomfortable. "But you're not invisible. You saved me tonight. You showed me that kindness still exists in this world." "That's not nothing, sir. That's everything." They talked until late into the night. Rajesh found himself sharing things he had never told anyone. His fears, his disappointments, his reasons for shutting himself away from the world. Vikram listened with genuine interest, nodding at the right moments, laughing at Rajesh's dry observations about life. For the first time in years, Rajesh felt seen. He felt like his thoughts and feelings actually mattered to someone. When it was time to sleep, Rajesh gave Vikram his bed and took the couch for himself. As he lay there in the darkness, listening to the rain continue its assault on the windows, he realized something had shifted inside him. For 32 years, he had been alone by choice. Now, for the first time, he didn't feel quite so lonely. The next morning, Rajesh called in sick to work. He spent the entire day with Vikram. They visited a doctor to make sure the wound was healing properly. They went to buy new clothes for Vikram. They even took a trip to the local market. And Rajesh found himself laughing. Actually laughing at Vikram's jokes about the street vendors and their aggressive sales tactics. By the evening, when Vikram asked if he could stay a few more days, Rajesh didn't hesitate. "Stay as long as you need," he said. Vikram's eyes filled with tears. "How can I ever repay you, sir? You have given me a second chance at life. Truly, I will spend every day making sure that your kindness comes back to you tenfold. That's my promise. Let me in, and I will reward you like no one has ever rewarded you before." Rajesh smiled and patted him on the shoulder. He didn't know then that promises made in moments of vulnerability are sometimes the easiest to break. He didn't know that kindness, when given to the wrong person, can become your greatest weakness. He didn't know that the best reward for helping someone would be the pain that would follow. But he was about to learn. Vikram stayed. Days became weeks, weeks became months. What started as a temporary arrangement transformed into something that felt permanent. Rajesh found himself sharing his entire life with this young man. His routines, his money, his trust, his heart. He even helped Vikram get a job through a contact at his office. Everything seemed perfect. For the first time in his life, Rajesh wasn't lonely. And in that happiness, he forgot the most important lesson he had learned. The world is not kind to kind people. It devours them. 8 months had passed since Rajesh first met Vikram on that rainy evening. The seasons had changed. The monsoon had gone. Summer had come and passed, and now the city was settling into the cool comfort of autumn. Rajesh's apartment, which had once been a haven of solitude, now felt alive with another person's presence. What had started as a temporary arrangement had become permanent without either of them formally deciding it should be. Vikram had become not just a roommate, but something closer. The first real friendship Rajesh had ever allowed himself to have. But lately, something had shifted. It was subtle at first. Small things that Rajesh kept telling himself didn't matter. A bill that went unpaid. A job that Vikram had quit without explanation. Money from Rajesh's savings account that seemed to disappear in small increments. Rajesh would notice these things and then deliberately ignore them, pushing aside the voice in his head that warned him something was wrong. The voice sounded a lot like his younger self, the version of Rajesh who had learned to be cautious, who had spent years building walls for a reason. It started on a Tuesday morning. Rajesh was preparing to go to work when he noticed that his laptop was missing from the shelf where he kept it. It was an old computer, nothing fancy, but it was his. He had used it for years to manage his personal finances and keep records of his life. "Vikram," he called out, "do you know where my laptop went?" Vikram emerged from the bedroom, looking confused.
Your laptop?
No, sir. Where did you last see it? On the shelf in the living room. It was there yesterday. Oh, that, Vikram said, a slightly uncomfortable smile crossing his face. Actually, I took it to a repair shop. The fan was making a strange noise, remember? I thought I would get it checked while you were at work. It's nothing to worry about. I'll bring it back tomorrow. The explanation was reasonable. It made perfect sense. Yet something about Vikram's voice, the slight hesitation before he answered, made Rajesh uneasy. But he said nothing. He was tired of being suspicious of people. He was tired of assuming the worst. He told himself to trust Vikram, just like Vikram had asked him to do months ago. The laptop never came back. When Rajesh asked about it 2 days later, Vikram said the repair shop was still working on it. When he asked a week later, Vikram said the shop had lost it and was dealing with the situation. When he asked 2 weeks later, Vikram became defensive. Why do you keep asking about that stupid laptop? Vikram snapped. Do you not trust me? After everything I've done for you? What have you done for me? Rajesh asked, genuinely confused. I've kept you company when you were lonely. I've made this apartment feel like a home instead of a prison. I've listened to all your complaints about your life. And this is how you repay me? By accusing me of losing your laptop? Rajesh felt guilty immediately. Vikram was right. The laptop was just a thing, and here he was making a big deal out of it just because Vikram had made a mistake. He apologized profusely and never brought it up again. The laptop became something he deliberately forgot about, a sacrifice he made at the altar of their friendship. But the incidents kept happening, each one larger than the last. 3 months after the laptop incident, Rajesh received a phone call from his bank. There had been fraudulent activity on his account. 40,000 rupees had been withdrawn in cash over the course of a week. Rajesh felt his stomach drop as he listened to the bank representative explain the situation. They traced the withdrawals to ATMs in Mumbai, but there was no way to identify who had made them. He asked Vikram directly that evening, "Did you take money from my account?" Vikram's face went pale. For a moment, Rajesh thought his suspicions were confirmed. Then, Vikram broke down crying. "Yes," Vikram admitted. "I did. I'm so sorry, Rajesh, sir. I swear I was going to pay it back. I just needed the money. There was a debt I had to repay. The people from before, they found me again. They said if I didn't pay them, they would hurt me. I didn't know what else to do. I took your card from your wallet one day and used it." Vikram fell to his knees. "I betrayed your trust. I betrayed the only person who ever cared about me. I'm a monster. I deserve to be thrown out on the street. I deserve everything bad that happens to me." Rajesh's anger dissolved the moment he saw Vikram's tears. His heart ached with sympathy for this young man who had so much pain in his life. He helped Vikram up and held him while he cried. He told him it was okay, that they would figure it out together. He even told Vikram he would pay back the bank and that they would get through this. It didn't occur to him to ask questions. It didn't occur to him to verify Vikram's story about the debt. It didn't occur to him that maybe Vikram had used the money for something else entirely. Because by now, Rajesh was no longer thinking clearly. He had confused love with enablement. He had confused forgiveness with enabling further betrayal. He had become so invested in the idea that Vikram was a good person going through hard times that he had stopped seeing reality. Reality had become whatever Vikram told him it was. The turning point came on a cold December evening. Rajesh's mother called. She was sick, she said. Very sick. She needed to go to the hospital for tests, and she needed money for the expenses. His father wasn't working anymore, and his younger sister was struggling to make ends meet. Could Rajesh send them 200,000 rupees? Rajesh had the money saved. It was his emergency fund, his security blanket against the unpredictability of life. But his mother was sick, and family came first. He agreed to wire the money immediately. He told Vikram about it that evening. "My mother is ill. I need to send my family some money to help with her medical expenses." Vikram's reaction was unexpected. He stood up from the couch and started pacing the room, his face dark with something that looked like anger. "Your mother? So now you care about your family? Where were they when you were sitting alone in this apartment every night before I came? Where were they?" "Vikram, what are you talking about? They're my family." "I have to help them." "And what about me? Vikram's voice rose. I'm like your family too, aren't I? Haven't I done enough for you? Haven't I made you happy? And now you're going to send all your money to people who don't even care about you? Rajesh stared at him in shock. He had never heard Vikram speak like this before. This wasn't the grateful young man who had promised to reward him. This wasn't the friend who had changed his life. This was someone else entirely. That's not fair, Rajesh said quietly.
I can help both you and my family. Can you? Vikram demanded. Because from where I'm standing, you're choosing them over me.
You always choose them over me. You always will. And I'm tired of being second. I'm tired of being someone you help out of charity. The words cut deep because they contained a grain of truth. Rajesh realized in that moment that Vikram had been keeping score the entire time. Every act of kindness Rajesh had shown him had created a debt in Vikram's mind, and now he wanted payment. But Rajesh was tired. He was tired of managing Vikram's emotions, tired of apologizing for things he hadn't done wrong, tired of second-guessing every decision he made. For the first time since Vikram had entered his life, Rajesh felt anger rise within him. You're right, Rajesh said calmly. You're right that I have to take care of my family, and I think it's time that you started taking care of yourself. I love you as a friend, but this is not healthy anymore. I think you need to find your own place. He expected anger, he expected tears. What he got was silence. Vikram stared at him for a long moment, and his expression shifted into something cold and calculating that Rajesh had never seen before. If that's what you want, Vikram said quietly, but you'll regret this. You'll be alone again, Rajesh. You'll sit in this apartment by yourself night after night, and you'll think about me and wonder if you made the right choice. And the answer will always be no. Vikram left the apartment that night. He packed his things, clothes that Rajesh had bought for him, shoes that Rajesh had purchased, and walked out without looking back. Rajesh expected to feel relief. Instead, he felt a crushing emptiness that was somehow worse than the loneliness he had felt before Vikram arrived. The days that followed were difficult. Rajesh went to work, came home, and sat in his apartment staring at the walls. He had sent the money to his mother, and she had called to thank him. She had asked about his life, whether he was taking care of himself, whether he had found someone special. He had lied and said he was fine, that everything was good. 3 weeks after Vikram left, Rajesh's landlord called him. There had been some irregular charges on the building's water bill. Upon investigation, they discovered that Vikram had added himself to the lease agreement without permission and had been running up the bill by constantly doing laundry. The landlord asked if Rajesh knew about this. Rajesh hadn't known. He realized then that he truly hadn't known Vikram at all, that the person who had lived in his apartment for 8 months had been a stranger wearing a mask of gratitude and friendship. But the worst was yet to come. A month after Vikram left, Rajesh received a notice from the police. His identity had been used to open several credit card accounts and take out loans. The debts totaled nearly 500,000 rupees. Vikram, it turned out, had stolen all the necessary documents from the apartment and had been living a secret life that Rajesh knew nothing about. As Rajesh sat in the police station trying to explain that he was a victim of fraud, he realized something profound. Vikram had never intended to repay his kindness. That promise made on that rainy evening, "Let me in, I'll reward you," had been a lie from the beginning. Vikram had seen in Rajesh exactly what he needed, a lonely, vulnerable man desperate for human connection. And he had exploited that vulnerability systematically and without mercy. The question that tormented Rajesh wasn't about Vikram anymore, it was about himself. How could he have been so blind? How could he have ignored every warning sign? How could he have convinced himself that love meant ignoring the obvious truth? The answer was painful but necessary. He had wanted so badly to believe in the possibility of human goodness that he had overlooked human nature itself. The court battles lasted 2 years. 2 years of showing up to a police station, of sitting in courtrooms filled with lawyers and judges, of trying to prove that he was a victim, not a criminal. The credit card companies were sympathetic once the fraud was verified, and the police eventually caught Vikram attempting to use Rajesh's identity to fraudulently withdraw money from another bank. He was arrested and prosecuted. During the trial, Rajesh had to sit across from Vikram in the courtroom. His former friend showed no remorse, no shame. In fact, he smiled at Rajesh. a cold, mocking smile that suggested this entire thing had been a game, and Vikram had lost only because of bad luck. When asked by the judge why he had done this, Vikram's response was chilling. Because he deserved it, Vikram said flatly. He thought he was so superior with his clean apartment and his good job and his savings account. He thought he was helping me, that he was being charitable, but all he was doing was reminding me every single day that I was less than him, that I was someone to be pitied. I just took what he owed me for making him feel good about himself. Rajesh realized in that moment that everything had been a transaction in Vikram's mind. Every kind word, every hot meal, every moment of companionship had been a currency in a system where Vikram was keeping careful count, waiting for the moment when the balance would tip and he could collect his payment in whatever form he chose. Vikram was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Rajesh felt nothing when the verdict was read. Not relief, not joy, not vindication, just exhaustion. The financial damage was extensive. Even though the courts eventually cleared him of responsibility for the fraudulent accounts, Rajesh's credit was damaged. He spent months contacting companies, providing documentation, and rebuilding his financial reputation. The money he had spent on Vikram, the clothes, the food, the laptop, the hidden debts he had unknowingly taken on, was gone. 300,000 rupees evaporated into the void, and there was no way to recover it. More painful than the financial loss was the emotional toll. Rajesh felt stupid. He felt ashamed. He felt like he deserved what had happened because he had been foolish enough to believe in the possibility of uncomplicated human kindness. His colleagues at work had heard the story, and he became the subject of whispered conversations and sympathetic looks that felt worse than outright ridicule. He considered leaving Mumbai. He considered leaving his job, his apartment, his life, and starting fresh somewhere nobody knew his story. But after 2 years of court dates and explanations, he was too tired to run. Instead, something unexpected happened. A woman named Priya, who worked in the HR department at his office, began talking to him regularly. She would sit with him during lunch, ask him how he was doing, and mostly just listen when he talked. She didn't judge him for being deceived. She told him her own story, how she had been married to a man who had betrayed her trust in equally devastating ways, how she had spent 2 years rebuilding her life, learning to trust again, learning to believe that people were worth the risk. The worst thing we can do, Priya told him one day as they walked along the gateway of India during their lunch break, is to let someone else's cruelty poison our ability to be kind. That's when they truly win. That's when they take away not just your money, but your humanity. Rajesh had never thought about it that way. He had been so focused on the damage Vikram had caused that he hadn't considered whether he wanted to let that damage define the rest of his life. He had 2 choices. He could build even higher walls than before, becoming a person whose heart was permanently closed to others, or he could continue to have a heart, with all the risks that entailed, and accept that vulnerability was the price of being human. It wasn't an easy choice. There were nights when he lay awake, replaying conversations with Vikram, analyzing every word for signs he should have seen. There were moments when he questioned his own judgment completely. But gradually, with Priya's quiet support, something shifted inside him. Rajesh began volunteering at a community center for young people. He didn't do it to prove anything or to assuage guilt. He did it because the center helped troubled youth find direction, and he understood better than most what it felt like to be lost. He worked with teenagers who were struggling with poverty, family problems, and a lack of direction in life. He helped them with their studies, talked to them about their dreams, and tried to guide them toward legitimate paths forward. One day, about 6 months into volunteering, a young girl named Anjali came to him with a problem. She had been scammed by someone online who promised her a job. She had lost her family's savings. Rajesh listened to her story, and it mirrored his own in many ways. But instead of just sympathizing, he helped her navigate the police system to report the fraud. He helped her understand that being scammed didn't make her stupid, it made her human. But how do I trust anyone after this? Anjali asked him, tears streaming down her face. Rajesh had thought deeply about this question every day for the past 2 years. You learn to trust carefully, he told her. You don't close your heart completely, because that's not really living. But you also pay attention. You notice the small inconsistencies, the things that don't add up. You trust your instincts, especially when they're telling you something is wrong. And you understand that helping someone doesn't mean ignoring their flaws or enabling their destructive behavior. Love and boundaries aren't opposites. They go together. Anjali nodded slowly. Do you still trust people? She asked. Yes, Rajesh said. But I trust them less blindly than I used to. And I've learned that it's okay to care about someone and still hold them accountable. It's okay to say no to someone you love. In fact, sometimes that's the greatest kindness you can show them. 3 years after Vikram was arrested, Rajesh received a letter. It came from the prison where Vikram was being held. His hands shook as he opened it, unsure what to expect. Rage? More manipulation? Another attempt at extracting something from him. Instead, he found unexpected words. The letter was long, several pages written in a careful hand. Vikram wrote about his time in prison, about the work he had been doing with a rehabilitation program, about the counseling he was receiving. He wrote about his childhood, about an alcoholic father who had beaten him, about a mother who had died when he was young, about uncles and cousins who had exploited him. He wrote about how he had built walls around his heart just like Rajesh had, but his walls were made of anger and resentment instead of solitude. When I met you, Vikram wrote, I saw everything I could never be. I saw someone who had made something of himself despite his loneliness. I saw someone who was stable and secure. And instead of feeling happy for you, instead of thinking I could learn from you, I felt rage. I decided that you owed me something just for existing and being everything I wasn't. That's when I decided to hurt you, not out of greed, but out of spite, out of the need to prove that you weren't better than me, that I could tear down your safety, like you had unconsciously made me feel less safe by comparison. He ended with an apology that sounded genuine. Though Rajesh remained cautious, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, Vikram wrote. I know that what I did cannot be undone. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand that my pain was never your fault and was never your responsibility. And I understand that you showed me kindness when I didn't deserve it. And I destroyed it because I didn't know how to receive kindness without turning it into a weapon. Rajesh read the letter 3 times. He felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger that was slowly fading, sadness for the boy that Vikram had been, and a strange sense of peace. The letter changed nothing in a practical sense. The money was still gone. The years of stress were still lived. The shame and embarrassment were still experienced. But it did change something internal. It confirmed that Rajesh had been right all along about one thing. Vikram wasn't a monster. He was just a broken person who had broken Rajesh in return. Understanding that didn't excuse the damage, but it allowed Rajesh to finally separate his compassion for Vikram the person from his consequences for Vikram the perpetrator. Rajesh showed the letter to Priya, who had become his girlfriend by this point. She read it carefully and then looked at him. What are you going to do? She asked. Rajesh thought about it. He didn't owe Vikram anything. He could throw the letter away and never respond. But that wasn't who he wanted to be. Not anymore, he wrote back. It was a brief letter, but it carried weight. He wrote about the consequences of Vikram's actions, both for Rajesh and for Vikram himself. He wrote about the pain and the cost. But he also wrote that he chose to forgive, not because Vikram deserved it, but because Rajesh deserved to be free from carrying resentment. I hope, he wrote, that when you leave this prison, you become someone who contributes to the world instead of taking from it. Not because you owe me anything, but because that's the only way you'll ever truly change. The debt I thought you owed me was always an illusion. What you owe is to yourself and to society. I hope you pay that debt honestly. 5 years after the incident, Vikram was released from prison. He reached out through a mutual contact and expressed a desire to work with street youth in rehabilitation programs. Rajesh was hesitant at first, but through the grapevine he heard that Vikram seemed to be genuinely trying to change. Rajesh didn't reach out to him. That chapter was closed. But he did silently wish him well. Rajesh's life transformed in unexpected ways. He married Priya 2 years after they started dating. They bought a small house together in a quieter part of Mumbai. He continued volunteering at the community centre, and with Priya's help, they started a program specifically designed to educate young people about fraud and how to protect themselves. The lesson Rajesh had learned the hard way, that kindness without wisdom is just naivety, became the foundation of everything he did. He taught teenagers to be open-hearted but eyes wide open. He taught them that vulnerability didn't mean stupidity. He taught them that they could be kind and cautious at the same time. One evening, years later, Rajesh was sitting on the porch of his house with Priya, drinking tea and watching the sunset. A young man approached them, one of the teenagers from the program who was now studying engineering at university. "Sir," the young man said, "I just wanted to thank you. I was approached by a scammer online, and because of what you taught us, I recognized it immediately and reported him. If it wasn't for you sharing your own story, I would have fallen for it." Rajesh smiled. "That's the point," he said. "We don't learn from others' mistakes so we can judge them. We learn so we can be better than we would have been otherwise." After the young man left, Priya took Rajesh's hand. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Do you regret that day when you picked up your umbrella and met Vikram?" Rajesh thought about this honestly. "No," he said finally. "Not anymore. I regret that Vikram used my kindness against me. I regret the pain and the loss. But I don't regret the choice to be kind. Because that choice, as terrible as the consequences were, led me to understand something important. I'm capable of loving and trusting even after being hurt. And that's something I didn't know about myself before." He paused. "The reward Vikram promised never came, but a different reward did. I found out that I'm stronger than I thought. That I can be hurt and still remain open. That's not something money can buy. That's not something anyone can steal from you if you don't let them." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In the distance, the sounds of the city continued. Horns honking, people shouting, the endless hum of millions of lives being lived. But on the porch of their quiet house, there was peace. Rajesh Kumar had spent 32 years building walls, and it took Vikram Sharma to teach him that the walls weren't his protection. They were his prison, and the price of getting out had been steep. But in the end, the cost of staying imprisoned would have been even higher. Sometimes the greatest promise we make isn't to others, it's to ourselves. The promise to remain human, to continue to love, to keep taking the risk of trusting, even after trust has been broken. That's the promise Rajesh finally kept, and in keeping it, he discovered that the real reward wasn't something someone else could give him. It was something he could only give to himself.